"Keep your gold, your majesty. Give them back their freedom." Emily Carter spoke softly, but the words struck the Crimson Court harder than any royal command. Nearly 300 vampires sat beneath the vaulted ceiling of the throne hall, and not one of them moved. Red candles burned along black marble walls. Winter rain tapped against stained glass windows 40 feet above the floor. At the far end of the chamber, Vampire King Salvatore Ricci sat upon a throne carved from a single block of dark stone. His skin was unnaturally pale, whiter than the cold moonlight falling across the steps beneath him. His black hair was swept away from a face so still and sharply defined that he might have been mistaken for a statue, if not for the crimson eyes fixed entirely on Emily. Between them rested an open cedar chest filled with gold coins, property deeds, and a royal ring bearing the ancient crest of House Ricci. The fortune inside could have purchased a mansion overlooking the Hudson River. It could have paid every hospital bill Emily's younger brother would ever face. It could have ended the fear that followed her through every late shift, every overdue notice, and every call from the medical center. 2 nights earlier, she had been a maid whose name most of the court had never bothered to learn. Now Salvatore had declared before every noble house that she had saved his life and helped expose a conspiracy against the crown. By vampire law, the king's debt to her could not remain unpaid. Everyone expected her to kneel. Several nobles leaned forward with thin, knowing smiles, already imagining the human girl reaching for the gold with trembling hands. Others watched with open contempt, convinced that poverty would reveal her true nature. Emily still wore the plain black uniform she had used while polishing silver and carrying linen through the servant corridors. Her brown hair had been pinned neatly behind her head, though several loose strands framed her tired face. Her fair skin looked warm and alive beside the cold porcelain complexion surrounding her. She had no jewels, no title, and no family name that carried power in this room, but she did not lower her eyes. Salvatore's voice moved through the chamber, quiet and absolute. "Emily Carter, the throne recognizes the debt owed to you. The gold is yours. The land is yours. The protection of my house is yours for as long as you live." A murmur passed through the court. Emily looked at the royal ring, one small object, yet every vampire in the hall understood what it meant. No noble could threaten her. No creditor could touch her wages. No hospital could refuse her brother treatment. She could leave the estate before sunrise and never scrub another marble floor. Her hand rose. The entire court seemed to hold its breath, but instead of taking the replaced her palm against the lid of the chest and slowly closed it. The sound was not loud, a simple wooden click. Still, it silenced the room. Lady Seraphine Voss, seated near the throne, turned sharply toward the noblewoman beside her. A councilman in a silver-trimmed coat stopped smiling. Even the guards along the walls shifted their attention from Emily to their king, waiting for the air to turn cold. Salvatore did not move. Only his eyes changed, darkening from crimson to the color of banked embers. "You refuse a royal reward?" he asked. Emily's heart pounded so hard she was certain every vampire could hear it. They probably could. She folded her hands to keep them from shaking. "Yes, your majesty." A nobleman rose from the first row. "Sit down," Salvatore said. The man obeyed before the final word had fully left the king's mouth. Salvatore descended 1 step from the throne. "Perhaps the reward is insufficient. It is more money than I could earn in several lifetimes. Then why refuse it?" Emily glanced toward the upper gallery, where the estate workers had been ordered to stand as witnesses. Human faces watched from behind the carved railing. Some were frightened. Some looked exhausted. One young woman held the hand of an older maid whose family had served the court for 27 years without ever paying off a debt that should never have existed. Emily turned back to the king. "Because the greatest debt in this room is not owed to me." The silence deepened. Salvatore's expression remained unreadable, but something sharpened behind his eyes. "Explain." Emily drew one careful breath. "I will not accept a comfortable life while the people who helped build this court are still trapped by false contracts. I will not take land while families outside these walls are waiting for their homes to be returned. And I will not wear your protection as though justice is a privilege reserved for the person who happened to save a king." Several nobles recoiled. One whispered that she had forgotten her place. Emily heard him. She continued anyway. 2 nights ago, no one here knew my name. Today you call me worthy because my actions benefited the throne. But the others were worthy before anyone powerful needed them. Salvatore came down another step. He now stood less than 15 feet away, tall and motionless beneath the red candlelight. "What is it you want from me, Emily Carter?" She met the gaze of a 600-year-old king and answered without kneeling. "I want you to return what this court took from those who could not stand here and demand it themselves." No one spoke, no one moved. For the first time in centuries, the Vampire King was not the most powerful person in his own throne room. 2 nights earlier, however, Emily Carter had possessed no power at all. She had only a worn uniform, a hospital notice she could not afford, and the certainty that someone was knocking from behind a wall where no living person was supposed to be. 4 days earlier, Emily Carter stood in the servants' kitchen beneath a ceiling stained by years of steam, counting the bills in a plain white envelope for the 3rd time. Even though she already knew the total, it was not enough. The hospital had given her until Friday to confirm Noah's next procedure, and Friday was now 2 days away. She folded the notice carefully and slipped it into the inside pocket of her uniform before anyone could see. Around her, copper pans hung above a long preparation table. Ovens breathed out waves of heat, and the midnight staff moved quickly beneath the yellow lights. No one spoke above a murmur. In the Ritchie estate, even the walls seemed to listen. Emily had worked there for 11 months. Long enough to learn which corridors remained warm after sunset, which staircases groaned beneath human feet, and which doors were never to be touched. The Eastern Wing was one of those places. Officially, it was unused. No guests stayed there. No meetings were held there. No servants were assigned to clean it. Yet every night, 1 tray of bread, water, and broth disappeared from the kitchen ledger without a name attached to it. Emily had noticed the pattern 3 weeks earlier. She noticed patterns because invisible people had to. A woman who carried trays and polished silver learned more than those who sat at the tables. She knew which noble drank from a crystal glass without ever tasting it. She knew which council member lowered his voice when Salvatore Ricci entered a room. She knew which servant smiled in public and cried behind locked pantry doors. Most of all, she knew when something did not belong. The missing food did not belong. Neither did the sound behind the eastern wall. The first time Emily heard it, she had been carrying folded linens through a narrow corridor near the sealed wing. 3 soft knocks, a pause, then 3 more. She stopped so suddenly that the top sheet slid from the stack. "Hello," she whispered. Nothing answered. The next evening, the knocking returned at nearly the same hour. 3 taps, silence, 3 taps again. Emily pressed her palm to the cold stone. There was no pipe behind the wall, no servant passage marked on the estate plans. When she asked Mr. Halbrook, the senior steward, he went pale and told her the old building settled at night. "Stone does not knock in patterns," Emily said. "In this house, Miss Carter, you would be wise not to argue with stone. After that, no one would discuss it." Emily began leaving a small piece of bread inside a crack, and it was gone. On the 4th night, she added a folded scrap of paper with 2 words written across it. "Are you there?" The paper disappeared. No reply came back. Still, the next night, the knocking changed. 2 taps, 1 tap. Emily did not know what it meant, but she knew it was not the building settling. Someone was behind that wall, someone who could hear her, someone the household had decided not to see. "You are going to get yourself dismissed," whispered Margaret Lane, an older maid with silver in her hair and swollen fingers from years of work. She stood beside Emily in the laundry room, glancing nervously toward the open door. "You need this job. So does whoever is in there." Margaret's eyes filled with worry. "You have Noah." Emily looked down at the stack of freshly pressed shirts between them. "That is exactly why I cannot pretend not to hear it." Margaret said nothing. She did not have to. Everyone in the servants' quarters knew about Noah's heart condition. They knew Emily accepted every late shift and every holiday assignment. They knew she walked nearly 2 miles to the bus stop each morning to save the cost of a second route. What they did not know was that Noah had called her the previous night and apologized for being expensive. He was 15 years old, 15 and already measuring his life in medical bills. Emily had told him never to say that again. Then she had ended the call, sat on the edge of her narrow bed, and cried without making a sound. By the time she returned to the eastern corridor that evening, her fear had hardened into purpose. She carried a cleaning bucket to make her presence look ordinary. At the wall, she crouched and slipped a roll beneath the baseboard. "I do not know who you are," she whispered, "but I am trying." 3 knocks answered immediately. Emily froze. They were louder now, desperate. Then footsteps sounded at the far end of the corridor. Too quiet, too measured. Emily stood and gripped the mop handle. A tall figure appeared beneath the last wall lamp. Black suit, dark hair, skin pale enough to look carved from winter. Salvatore Ricci stopped 12 feet away, and the air around him seemed to lose all warmth. Emily lowered her eyes, but not before she saw his gaze move from her face to the crack beneath the wall. "Miss Carter," he said. His voice was calm, which made it more dangerous. "Why are you standing outside a forbidden wing after midnight?" Emily's heart began to race. Behind the stone, someone knocked once. Salvatore heard it. She knew he did. His expression did not change. That frightened her more than anger would have. Emily tightened her hand around the mop and answered with the only truth she had. Because someone in there is hungry. Salvatore's gaze rested on Emily for so long that the silence became its own warning. The corridor lamps burned steadily, but the space between them felt colder with every second. "You believe someone is being kept behind that wall," he said at last. Emily looked toward the narrow crack near the baseboard, then back at him. "I believe someone has been taking the food I leave there." "And you decided this was your responsibility?" "No one else would answer me." His eyes sharpened. "That was not my question," Emily swallowed. She had seen nobles tremble when Salvatore entered a room. She had watched senior staff lower their voices when his name was spoken. Standing 12 feet from him now, she understood why. He did not need through his stillness. "Yes," she said. "I decided it was my responsibility." Another knock came from behind the wall. One tap. Salvatore turned his head slightly, acknowledging the sound without surprise. That single movement told Emily more than any explanation could have. He knew the passage existed. Whether he knew who was inside was another question. "Return to the servants' wing," he said. "Forget what you heard." Emily did not move. "Is someone trapped in there? You are not in a position to question me, then put me in one." The words escaped before caution could stop them. Salvatore took one measured step forward. Emily's pulse raced, yet she held her ground. He studied her face as though searching for something beneath it. Fear, ambition, a hidden demand. "What do you want, Miss Carter?" "An answer. People rarely want only answers." "I do." "No." His voice remained quiet. "You want something from this house. Everyone does." Emily thought of Noah's hospital notice folded inside her uniform. She thought of the amount she still needed by Friday. For one dangerous moment she considered telling Salvatore. He could pay the bill without noticing the expense. One word from him could erase the problem that had kept her awake for months. But if she mentioned Noah now, Salvatore would believe he had proven his point. "I want to know that no one is being left hungry behind a locked door," she said. "That is all." Something unreadable passed through his crimson eyes. "Go back to your room." This time Emily obeyed, not because she believed him, but because she understood she would learn nothing more tonight. She pushed the cleaning bucket ahead of her and walked away without looking back. Salvatore remained in the corridor until her footsteps faded. Then he approached the wall and placed 2 fingers against the stone. His expression hardened. The eastern passage was supposed to be empty. He had ordered it sealed 8 years earlier, after the archive rooms were moved below the main library. No prisoner had been authorized there. No servant had been assigned to deliver food. Yet Emily had discovered a pattern his own stewards had either missed or concealed. That possibility disturbed him. What disturbed him more was her refusal to ask for anything. Salvatore had watched her for months, not openly. A king who had survived 6 centuries did not announce his suspicions. Reports reached him each week. Emily Carter had covered the cost of a broken serving tray for an older maid. She had returned a gold cufflink found beneath a guest's chair. She had given away half her dinner to a kitchen boy after he missed his meal. Each act appeared generous. Each could also have been carefully designed to build trust. Salvatore had once believed in goodness without proof. That mistake had nearly ended his reign. In 1829 he had trusted a human woman named Margaret Hale. She had laughed easily, spoken boldly, and treated him as a man instead of a king. He gave her access to rooms no mortal had entered. He offered her wealth, safety, and a place beside him. She sold his private correspondence to vampire hunters in exchange for gold and a promise that they would make her immortal. The promise had been false. The betrayal had not been. Since then, Salvatore had trusted patterns, records, and evidence. Never appearances, never kindness. By sunrise, he had summoned Adrian Cole, the head of royal security. "Find out who has been using the Eastern Passage," Salvatore ordered. Quietly, Adrian nodded. "And the maid? Watch her. Do you believe she is involved?" Salvatore looked toward the tall window, where the first grey light touched the estate grounds. "I believe she wants me to think she is different." He opened a narrow drawer in his desk and removed a silver key. It looked ancient, but its enchantment was simple. It could open the outer archive corridor and nothing more. No treasury, no weapons room, no sealed records. A safe temptation, a controlled question. "Place this where she will find it during tomorrow evening service." Adrian hesitated. "You are testing her. I am learning what she does when no one appears to be watching." Neither man noticed the faint shadow beyond the half-open study door. Dominic Vale stood in the adjoining gallery, motionless beneath a portrait of Salvatore's father. He had come to deliver council papers. Instead, he had heard every word. His pale mouth curved into a small smile. Salvatore believed he was preparing a test. Dominic saw something far more useful. He saw a human servant, a forbidden corridor, and the perfect person to blame for what would happen next. By the following evening, the silver key was waiting for Emily beneath a folded linen napkin on the service cart outside the west dining room. She almost missed it. The metal caught the amber light as she lifted a stack of plates, bright enough to stop her hand in mid-air. Emily looked down the corridor. No servants, no guards, only the quiet ticking of the grandfather clock near the staircase and the soft sound of rain against the tall windows. She picked up the key with 2 fingers. It was heavier than it looked, cold enough to sting her skin, with the Ritchie crest engraved along its narrow handle. She had seen that symbol on doors throughout the estate. Royal access, restricted access, the kind of key a maid was never supposed to touch. Emily's first instinct was to take it directly to Mr. Halbrook. Her second was to remember the 3 knocks behind the eastern wall. She slipped the key into the pocket of her apron. Across the estate, Adrian Cole watched from the shadowed entrance of the gallery. He saw exactly what Salvatore expected him to see. Emily had found the key. She had kept it. What Adrian did not know was that the key in her pocket was no longer the harmless copy he had placed beneath the napkin 20 minutes earlier. Dominic Vale had reached the cart first. He had removed Salvatore's enchanted key and replaced it with a genuine Eastern Archive key taken from a locked cabinet in the security office. The exchange had taken less than 10 seconds, quiet, precise, invisible. Dominic had then returned to the council wing and instructed a paid guard to prepare the next stage. Emily finished the dinner service without opening the pocket again. She carried dishes, refilled water glasses, and listened as nobles discussed trade boundaries as though no one outside the room mattered. At 9:30 the hospital called. Emily answered in the servants' stairwell, keeping her voice low. The nurse explained that Noah's condition was stable, but the deposit for Friday's procedure still had not been confirmed. "I understand," Emily said. "I will have it." She did not know how. After the call ended, she leaned her forehead against the cool wall and closed her eyes. The key rested against her hip. Salvatore's question returned to her. "What do you want, Miss Carter?" She could have wanted access to the royal office. She could have searched for money, records, anything that might help Noah. Instead, all she heard was the knocking. At 11:40, Emily left the servants' wing carrying the same cleaning bucket she had used the night before. The estate was quieter now. Most of the human staff had gone to their rooms, while the vampires had gathered in the lower ballroom for a council reception. She moved through the service corridor, down a narrow staircase, and across the unlit passage leading east. Each step sounded too loud. At the final corner, she stopped. The sealed door stood ahead of her beneath a single brass lamp. 2 royal guards were supposed to be stationed there. Neither was present. Emily's unease deepened. She took the key from her pocket. For a moment, she considered turning back. If Salvatore had meant for her to find it, this could be another question disguised as an accident. If he had not, keeping it could cost her the job Noah depended on. Then 3 knocks came from behind the wall. Faster than before, Emily inserted the key. The lock opened immediately. She froze. Salvatore had believed the copied key would open only the outer corridor. Adrian, positioned 50 feet away behind an ornamental screen, heard the real lock release and understood something was wrong. He reached for the communication device inside his coat. Before he could speak, every lamp in the eastern passage went dark. The estate did not lose power. Only that corridor did. Adrian stepped forward, but a steel security gate dropped between him and Emily, sealing the passage with a heavy crash. "Miss Carter," he called. "Do not go farther." Emily turned toward his voice. "Who royal security? Stay where you are." A second door closed behind her. She was trapped between the dark archive and the sealed gate. Somewhere deeper inside, a woman gave a faint cry. Emily tightened her grip around the bucket handle. "There is someone in there. I know. Wait for me." Adrian entered an emergency code into the control panel. Nothing happened. The system had been disabled from the council network. That required high-level authorization. Someone inside the court was interfering. Emily switched on the small flashlight clipped to her belt. Its narrow beam revealed a stone corridor lined with empty shelves and dust-covered portraits. The air smelled stale but not abandoned. A metal cup sat near the wall. A folded blanket lay beyond it. Fresh footprints crossed the dust. Emily moved forward. "Miss Carter," Adrian warned from behind the gate. "That is a direct order." She paused. Then the voice came again, weak, frightened. "Please." Emily looked back at the gate. Though she could no longer see Adrian through the darkness. "I am sorry," she said, "but whoever is in there has been waiting longer than I have." She followed the footprints past the shelves until she reached a narrow door concealed behind a hanging tapestry. The silver key opened that lock too. Inside was a young woman sitting on the floor beside a cot, pale with exhaustion but awake. Her servant's dress was wrinkled and a thin chain secured the door from the outside rather than restraining her. Emily lowered the flashlight. "My name is Emily Carter. I am going to help you." The woman stared at the key in Emily's hand and fear crossed her face. "You should not have that." "I found it." "No," the woman whispered. "Someone wanted you to find it." Before Emily could answer, a distant alarm sounded somewhere beneath the estate. The woman pushed herself to her feet. "My name is Lily Bennett. Dominic Vale locked me here because I found his records. He is going to move against the king tonight." Emily felt the corridor shift from mystery to danger. "How do you know?" Lily looked toward the ceiling, listening to footsteps moving above them. "Because he needed a human servant to open this door, carry that key, and be blamed when Salvatore Ricci does not return from the eastern wing." Lily's warning seemed to drain the last warmth from the hidden room. Emily stared at her, trying to separate fear from fact. "Start at the beginning," she said, quickly. Lily pressed one hand against the wall to steady herself. "I worked in Lord Vale's accounting office. 3 weeks ago, I found 2 sets of records. The public ledgers showed ordinary service contracts. The private ledgers showed something else." "What?" "Debts that were never real. Families charged for food they never received. Workers fined for rooms they were already required to occupy. Land transferred after signatures were copied." Lily's voice shook, but her words remained clear. "People came here believing they could work off what they owed. The amount only grew." Emily thought of Margaret Lane's 27 years of service. She thought of the older maid's swollen fingers and the way she avoided every question about her contract. How many people? Hundreds, maybe more. A low mechanical hum passed through the corridor outside. Emily turned toward the door. The security gate was still locked and Adrian's voice had gone silent. "Where are the records now?" she asked. "I copied the pages Dominic feared most. Payments, forged approvals. I hid them inside an air duct near the old map room. Why did he not find them? Because he thought I had given them to the king." Lily drew a careful breath. "I tried. Dominic's guard stopped me before I reached the royal offices. He locked me here while he searched for the copy." The distant alarm stopped. The sudden silence felt worse. Emily moved to Lily's side. "You said he is moving against Salvatore tonight." Lily nodded. "Dominic has been telling the council that the king has become weak. He says Salvatore protects humans at the expense of vampire houses. He needed proof that the court could no longer trust him, so he created it. He plans to lure the king into this wing with a false security report. Then he will make it appear that a human servant entered a restricted archive and attacked him while stealing royal property." Lily looked at the silver key. "You are the servant." Emily's stomach tightened. The key had not been lost, it had been placed. The empty guard station, the darkened lamps, the sealed gate. Every step had been arranged before she entered the corridor. "When is Salvatore supposed to come here?" The report was scheduled for midnight. Emily glanced at the small watch pinned beneath her collar. 11:52, 8 minutes. She crossed to the door and called into the darkness. "Mr. Cole?" No answer. She tried again. "Adrian?" Only the faint echo of her own voice returned. Lily moved toward a narrow shelf and pulled away a stack of empty storage boxes. Behind them was a service panel with several old switches. "The emergency system connects to the lower guard station, but Dominic disabled the main line. Can it be restored? Then is there another way out?" Lily pointed to the rear wall. "There is a maintenance passage behind the map room. It leads close to the old weapons archive." "Close to where Dominic expects the king?" "Yes." Emily took the flashlight from her belt and handed it to Lily. "Show me." They left the hidden room and moved deeper into the eastern archive. Lily walked slowly from exhaustion, so Emily kept one arm ready beside her without pulling or rushing her. The corridor narrowed until their shoulders nearly touched the stone walls. Dust covered the floor, but a fresh line of footprints led toward a staircase. Emily stopped. "Are those yours?" Lily shook her head. "No one has taken me this way. The footprints were too clean to be old. Someone had passed through recently." At the bottom of the stairs, they found the old map room. Rolled charts filled cracked wooden cabinets. A metal vent ran along the ceiling. Lily pointed to the third panel. "The records are inside." Emily climbed onto a low table and reached into the vent. Her fingers found a cloth packet wedged beyond the frame. She pulled it free and opened one corner. Pages, names, amounts, official seals. Enough evidence to destroy Dominic's network if they reached the right hands. She tucked the packet beneath her uniform sash. Now the passage. Lily opened a narrow door behind a wall map. Cold air moved through the gap. As they entered, Emily heard footsteps above them. Slow, controlled. More than one person. A man's voice carried through the ceiling. "The king received the report. He is on his way." Another voice answered. "And the maid?" "Already inside." Emily and Lily froze. "We have to warn him," Emily whispered. If we go forward, we may meet Dominic, Lily said. If we stay here, Salvatore walks into the trap alone. Emily thought of Noah, of Friday, of the job she would certainly lose if she survived this night. Then she thought of the people named in the packet against her side. People who had waited years for someone to believe them, she said. They followed the maintenance passage until it ended behind a narrow iron grate. Through it, Emily could see part of a windowless chamber lit by a single blue lamp. Salvatore entered from the opposite door with 2 guards behind him. His pale face was calm, but his eyes searched the room immediately. "Where is the reported breach?" he asked. One guard stepped back, the other closed the door. A third figure emerged from the shadows. Dominic Vale. Emily gripped the grate. Lily covered her mouth to keep from making a sound. Dominic smiled at the king as though greeting him at dinner. "There was no breach, Your Majesty," he said. "Only an opportunity to finally correct the future of this court." Dominic's words settled over the chamber like winter fog. Salvatore did not look surprised. He stood beneath the blue lamp, perfectly still, while the 2 guards behind him shifted closer to the door. "You forged a royal security report," Salvatore said. "You disabled the eastern corridor, removed my sentries, and brought me into a sealed room. That is a great deal of effort for a conversation." Dominic smiled. "You stopped listening years ago. I listened carefully. You observe, you calculate, you test. But you do not hear what your own court has been telling you." Salvatore's crimson eyes moved briefly toward the guards. One avoided his gaze. The other placed a hand near the control panel beside the door. Emily understood at once. They were not protecting the king. They were holding the room. Lily leaned close to the iron grate and whispered, "The guard on the left brought food to my cell." Emily studied the narrow maintenance passage. The grate was secured by 2 latches on their side. They could open it, but the sound would reveal them immediately. Salvatore stepped farther into the chamber. "What exactly has my court been saying?" Dominic moved toward a long table where a sealed crystal vial rested beside several papers. "That you have forgotten what maintains order. Human labor built these estates. Human fear dependence keeps them obedient. Yet you speak of audits, limits, and protections. You mean limits on theft." Dominic's smile vanished. "I mean tradition. Tradition is not a defense when the law has been broken." The blue flame above them bent toward Salvatore as if pulled by his voice. Dominic noticed. He reached for the crystal vial. Salvatore's gaze followed his hand. "What is inside?" "Proof that even a king can be made helpless." One guard moved toward the lamp. The chamber went dark. Emily heard a chair scrape, a low command, then the sound of the table shifting across the floor. Lily gripped her arm. "We have to move." Emily opened the grate. Its hinges gave a sharp metallic cry. A red glow appeared in the darkness as Salvatore's eyes flared. For 1 second, Emily saw every figure clearly. Dominic stood beside the table. One guard blocked the main door. The other held Salvatore's right arm, while a pale silver stain spread across the king's sleeve near his shoulder. There was no open wound, only liquid silver soaking into the fabric and dark lines beginning beneath his unnaturally pale skin. Salvatore pulled free, but his movement slowed almost immediately. Dominic stepped back. "The compound is already entering your system," he said. "You will remain conscious long enough to understand what happens next." Salvatore reached toward him, but his hand stopped short. His knees weakened. He caught the table before lowering himself against the wall. Dominic turned to the guards. "Leave the maid's key beside him. Place her cleaning cloth near the vial. The council will believe she entered to steal from the archive and panicked when the king found her." Emily's breath caught. He did not know she was there. "Not yet." Lily pointed toward a red lever near the far wall. "That activates the royal distress signal." "Can you reach it? If they are looking somewhere else?" Emily glanced at the emergency case mounted beside the grate. Its seal had already been broken. Inside were a flashlight, a silver containment band, insulated gloves, and a sealed emergency blood ration designed to keep until a physician arrived. She took the case. "When I step out, run to the lever." Lily stared at her. "What will you do?" "Make sure they look at me." Emily pushed the grate fully open. It struck the wall with a loud clang. Every head turned. Dominic's expression changed from surprise to recognition. "Emily Carter," he said. "How convenient." She stepped into the chamber with the flashlight raised. "Not for you." The guard nearest the door moved toward her. Salvatore forced his head up. "Do not touch her." Even weakened, his voice stopped the man for half a second. Lily slipped from the passage, crossed behind the table, and pulled the red lever. A bell rang through the eastern wing. Dominic's composure cracked. The second guard turned toward Lily. Emily pushed her cleaning bucket across the floor. Water spread beneath his shoes, forcing him to slow and steady himself. Lily reached the secondary panel and pressed the emergency signal. Red lights flashed along the ceiling. Dominic seized the crystal vial and backed toward a side exit. "We are leaving." The two disloyal guards followed him. Before disappearing, Dominic looked directly at Emily. "By morning, this will still be your crime." He did not flee the estate. He returned to the council wing, where his allies were already preparing the official version of the night. The side door closed behind him. Emily rushed to Salvatore. He sat against the wall, one hand pressed over the silver-stained sleeve. "Do not come closer," he said. "The compound may spread through direct contact." Emily pulled on the insulated gloves and opened the emergency case. Printed instructions were fastened inside the lid. "Tell me if I do this wrong. Secure the containment band above the stain, tight enough to slow the silver, not enough to stop circulation." Her hands trembled once, then steadied. She fastened the band around his upper arm and locked it into place. The dark lines beneath his skin slowed. Emily removed the sealed blood ration and connected the feeding tube exactly as the instructions showed. "This will not cure the silver," Salvatore warned. "I know. It will only keep me conscious. Then stay conscious." Lily knelt beside the alarm panel, listening. "The Royal Guard is coming." Less than 2 minutes. Salvatore looked at Emily as the first measure of emergency blood entered the line. "Why did you come back?" Emily checked the containment band and met his dimming crimson gaze. "Because someone was trapped behind a wall, and because you were walking into the same kind of darkness." Footsteps thundered beyond the outer gate. For the first time that night, the sound did not belong to Dominic's men. The Royal Guard reached the eastern chamber in less than 90 seconds, but to Emily it felt much longer. Adrian Cole entered first, followed by 2 physicians carrying a sealed medical case. His eyes moved from the silver-stained fabric on Salvatore's shoulder to Lily beside the alarm panel, then to the genuine archive key lying near Emily's cleaning bucket. He did not waste time asking questions. "Clear the corridor," he ordered. "No one enters without my authorization." The physicians knelt beside Salvatore. One examined the dark lines beneath his pale skin while the other checked the silver containment band Emily had secured around his upper arm. "The compound has not reached his core circulation," the senior physician said. The band slowed it. His gaze shifted toward Emily. "Who applied this?" "I did. Then you gave us the time we needed." Salvatore's crimson eyes remained open, though their light had dimmed. "Lily Bennett is under royal protection," he said. "So is Emily Carter." Adrian nodded. "Dominic Vale, seal the estate quietly. Let him believe we do not yet understand what happened." Emily glanced toward the side exit Dominic had used. She understood now that he had not fled. He had gone upstairs to control the story before Salvatore could speak. The physicians transferred the king to a narrow medical stretcher and moved him through the service passage to avoid the public halls. Adrian escorted Lily separately, keeping her hidden from the council. Emily followed until they reached the royal treatment room on the north side of the estate. There, a physician raised one hand. "You may wait outside." Salvatore spoke before Emily could step back. "She stays." The room was circular, lined with dark cabinets and frosted glass. Blue fire burned beneath a silver basin while the physicians worked to remove the remaining compound from Salvatore's system. Nothing they did was violent, but every movement was precise. Emily stood near the wall, still wearing the insulated gloves from the emergency case. Lily had been taken to a secure guest room with 2 loyal guards. The copied records remained hidden beneath Emily's sash. She could feel their weight against her side. After nearly an hour, the senior physician straightened. "The danger has passed. His Majesty must remain still until his strength returns." "How long?" Adrian asked. "Several hours." Salvatore closed his eyes. His face became completely motionless. The physician checked his pulse, then lowered his voice. "He is resting." Emily did not believe it. She had seen Salvatore command a room while silver moved through his body. A man like that did not surrender to sleep easily. Still, she said nothing. Adrian dismissed the attendants and sent guards outside. Before leaving, he approached Emily. "Dominic will act before dawn. He knows the king survived, but he does not know what we heard. He will blame me." "Yes, the key was found in your possession. Your cleaning cloth was inside the Tay-chamber. The guards who served him will support his account, and Lily, if he learns she is alive, he will change his plan. For now, she must remain hidden." Emily touched the packet beneath her sash. "These are the records she copied." Adrian's expression sharpened. She removed the cloth bundle and placed it in his hands. Adrian opened a black evidence envelope, slid the records inside without unfolding them, and sealed it with the royal security crest. He wrote the time, location, and Emily's name across the front. "This establishes custody," he said. "Lily will identify the records when the court is ready to hear her." Emily watched him lock the envelope inside a steel case. For the first time since entering the Eastern Wing, she felt that the truth might survive even if she did not control what happened next. Adrian turned toward the door. "His Majesty will decide what the court believes." Then he left. Silence returned. Emily washed her hands, removed the damp outer layer of her uniform, and sat beside the table where Salvatore rested. His skin looked almost colorless beneath the blue firelight. For the first time, he did not appear frightening. He appeared tired. "You were right about one thing," she said quietly. "People do want things from this house." Salvatore did not move. Emily folded a clean cloth and placed it against his forehead. "They want fair wages. They want to know when their contracts end. They want to stop being afraid that one mistake will cost their families everything." His breathing remained slow and measured. "You watch everyone," she continued, "but you do not see what happens beneath your own roof. Margaret Lane has worked here for 27 years. She still owes more than the day she arrived. The kitchen staff loses pay when nobles cancel a dinner. Human workers are punished under rules they are never allowed to read." Emily's voice tightened. "You call this order because the halls are quiet. They are quiet because people are afraid." Salvatore heard every word. He had not fallen asleep. The physicians had warned him not to speak, and silence now gave him something command never had: the truth without fear. Emily reached inside her uniform and touched the hospital notice folded in her pocket. "I cannot afford to lose this job," she admitted. "My brother Noah has a procedure on Friday. The hospital needs a deposit I do not have." She looked toward Salvatore's still face. "I could have searched that archive for money. I thought about it for 1 second, then I heard Lily." Her hand closed around the notice. "Noah once apologized for how much it costs to keep him alive. He is 15 years old. He should be worried about school and baseball, not whether his sister can afford his heart." Salvatore's fingers shifted slightly against the sheet. Emily noticed but assumed it was an unconscious movement. "If I had taken something tonight, even for him, I would have returned home as someone I did not want him to become." Her voice softened. "He needs a sister who can look him in the eye, not one who teaches him that another person's suffering becomes acceptable when your own need is great enough." Emily replaced the cloth and stood. "You tested me," she whispered. "I do not know how, but that key was never an accident." Salvatore remained still. "Perhaps you wanted proof that I was dishonest. Perhaps that was easier than admitting your court might be." She moved toward the door, then paused. "When you wake up, Your Majesty, do not ask where I passed your test. Ask whether you had the right to give it." The door closed softly behind her. Salvatore opened his eyes. Their crimson light returned, faint but clear. "Adrian stepped from the shadowed alcove where he had waited her," he said. Every word. Salvatore looked toward the closed door. "Prepare the court. For Dominic's arrest, not yet. Permit the hearing to begin. But Emily remains under your direct protection. Record every word Dominic says. The moment her safety is threatened, we intervene." Adrian hesitated. "She will still believe you abandoned her." Salvatore's expression darkened. "Then when this is over, I will owe her more than my life." Emily had taken only 6 steps from the treatment room when 2 royal guards appeared at the far end of the corridor. Their uniforms bore Salvatore's crest, but neither man met her eyes. "Emily Carter," the taller guard said. "You are required to come with us." She looked back at the closed treatment room door. No one opened it. No command came from within. Required by whom? The emergency council. Emily understood immediately. Dominic had moved faster than she expected. "I need to change out of this uniform first." "No, you will come now." The answer was too quick and too rehearsed. Emily kept her hands visible and walked between them. The estate had changed in less than an hour. Doors that were usually open had been locked. Servants stood in small groups beneath the hallway lamps, whispering until the guards approached. Then every voice stopped. Near the grand staircase, Margaret Lane saw Emily being escorted and pressed one hand to her mouth. Emily gave her the smallest shake of her head. "Do not interfere." Margaret lowered her gaze, but fear remained written across her face. The guards led Emily below the east tower through a stone passage she had never seen. They stopped outside a narrow holding room furnished with one wooden chair and a brass lamp. Before the door closed, Emily noticed a small black fixture above the frame, a royal security recorder. Adrian had kept his promise. She was under observation. That did not make the room feel less like a cell. A minute later, Dominic Vale entered. His coat was perfectly arranged. His pale hands were clean. Nothing about him suggested that he had stood in a sealed chamber while the king struggled to remain conscious. "Miss Carter," he said, "you have had an unfortunate evening." Emily remained standing. "Where is Salvatore?" "His Majesty is unable to speak on his own behalf." "That is not what I asked." Dominic studied her with mild amusement. "You are either very brave or very careless. You locked Lily behind a wall. You forged debts. You tried to blame me for what happened tonight. I do not need courage to understand that." His expression cooled at the mention of Lily. "She filled your head with desperate stories. She showed me records." For the first time, Dominic's gaze moved toward Emily's waist, searching for the packet he believed she still carried. Emily did not react. The records were already sealed inside Adrian's evidence case. "Where are they?" Dominic asked. "Beyond your reach." His eyes narrowed. "Nothing in this house is beyond my reach unless the court permits it." He stepped toward the table and placed a document beneath the lamp. "You have a younger brother, Noah Carter, 15 years old, St. Matthew's Medical Center. A procedure scheduled for Friday, provided the deposit is paid by tomorrow afternoon." Emily's heartbeat changed. Dominic heard it. A faint smile returned to his face. "There it is," he said. "The truth beneath all that dignity. Leave him out of this. I am offering to help him." Dominic placed a fountain pen beside the document. "Sign a statement admitting that you found the key, entered the Eastern Archive to steal royal property, and reacted foolishly when the king discovered you. You will also state that Lily Bennett invented her accusations to avoid punishment for theft." Emily looked at the blank line waiting for her name. "And if I sign, your brother receives the finest medical care available. His hospital balance disappears. You receive enough money to begin somewhere else. And Lily, no longer your concern." Emily imagined calling Noah after sunrise and telling him the deposit had been paid. She imagined the relief in his voice. Then she imagined Margaret still carrying an impossible debt, and Lily disappearing into another locked room while everyone pretended she had never existed. Dominic pushed the pen closer. "You have spent nearly a year polishing floors for a court that barely knows your name. Do not confuse suffering with virtue. Take the one chance that matters." Emily picked up the pen. Her fingers trembled. Dominic mistook the movement for surrender. "Sign it." Emily held the pen above the paper for one long second, then placed it back on the table. "No." Dominic's face became very still. "Consider carefully. I have. Your brother may lose his procedure. Then I will find another way. There may not be another way." Emily met his gaze. "If Noah survives because I sold someone else's freedom, then every beat of his heart will remind me what I taught him to accept." Dominic gathered the statement with controlled precision. "The court will not believe you." "Then why are you trying so hard to buy my silence?" For the first time he glanced toward the recorder above the door, only for a fraction of a second, enough to reveal that he had noticed it too late. The door opened. 4 council guards entered, but the taller man remained near Emily rather than Dominic. Adrian's protection was present, silent and carefully placed. Dominic turned away from her. "Place her under formal arrest. The charges are attempted theft, unlawful entry, and conspiracy against the crown." Emily did not resist when the genuine silver key was removed from her apron. She had nothing else for them to find. No copied records, no hidden evidence. Adrian had already secured the truth. As the guards led her toward the lower cells, Dominic spoke without looking back. "By morning, no one will remember you tried to tell the truth." Emily walked into the dark corridor with her head raised. Somewhere above them, behind the sealed doors of the royal wing, Salvatore Ricci remained silent by choice. And every noble who mistook that silence for weakness was beginning to reveal exactly where they stood. The lower cell had no window, only a narrow vent near the ceiling and a strip of yellow light beneath the door. Emily sat on the wooden bench with her hands folded in her estate, prepare for judgment above her. Footsteps passed every few minutes. Keys turned, voices lowered, no one entered. Time stretched until she could no longer tell whether 10 minutes or an hour had passed. She thought of Noah beneath the hospital lights, unaware that his name had become a weapon in a room he had never seen. She thought of Lily hidden under royal protection, and of the sealed records now locked inside age evidence case. The truth was safe. Whether it would be heard was another matter. Most of all, she thought of Salvatore. He had heard her warnings. He had ordered that she be protected. Yet he had still allowed the arrest to continue. Emily understood strategy. She understood that powerful men sometimes waited for enemies to expose themselves. Understanding did not make the silence hurt less. At last, the lock turned. 2 guards opened the door. "The emergency council is assembled," one said. "You will speak only when addressed." Emily stood. "Is the king alive?" Neither answered. They escorted her upstairs through a different route, avoiding the main servant halls. The closer they came to the throne chamber, the colder the air became. At the final doors, Emily heard hundreds of voices. Then the guards pushed them open. The Crimson Court had gathered beneath the red chandeliers. Every council seat was occupied. Noble families lined the galleries, their pale faces turned toward the center floor. Salvatore's throne stood empty. Dominic Vale occupied the position directly below it, not seated, but close enough to suggest authority. Emily was brought to the center of the hall. The genuine silver key rested on a black cushion nearby. Her cleaning cloth lay beside it, carefully folded as though it were sacred evidence. Dominic raised one hand. The room fell silent. "Emily Carter," he said, "you are charged with entering a restricted royal archive, attempting to remove protected documents, and conspiring against the life of King Salvatore Ricci." Emily looked at the empty throne. "Where is the king?" A murmur moved through the chamber. Dominic's expression tightened. "You will answer the charges. I will answer them before the king. His Majesty is unable to attend. Then this court should wait until he can." Several nobles exchanged looks. Dominic descended one step. "You were found in the eastern wing holding a stolen key. Your belongings were discovered beside the king after he was exposed to silver. 2 royal guards saw you enter the restricted corridor. Those guards worked for you. An accusation without proof." "Lily Bennett is proof." The room changed. Some nobles leaned forward. Dominic recovered quickly. "Lily Bennett was dismissed for theft 3 weeks ago. She was imprisoned behind a wall because she found your private ledgers." A councilwoman near the front whispered to the man beside her. Dominic heard it. His voice sharpened. "Where are these supposed ledgers?" Emily glanced briefly toward Adrian Cole, who stood among the royal guards along the wall. He gave no sign, but she knew the records were still in his custody. "Protected," she said. "Convenient." Dominic turned toward the council. "The accused offers hidden witnesses and invisible evidence. What she cannot explain is why the royal key was in her pocket. Because someone wanted me to carry it." "Who?" A few gasps broke the silence. Dominic gave a patient smile. "Miss Carter, poverty may inspire desperation, but it does not excuse treason." The word poverty struck exactly where he intended. He wanted the court to see need, not character. A human maid with unpaid bills, a frightened sister, someone easy to purchase and easier to blame. Dominic produced the statement from the holding room and placed it on the evidence table. "The court is prepared to show mercy. Admit that you entered the archive seeking valuables. Admit that Lily Bennett persuaded you to invent allegations against me. In exchange, your brother's medical procedure will be funded, and you will be permitted to leave the estate." Now the offer was public. No private threat, no room for misunderstanding. Hundreds of immortal eyes watched Emily weigh one boy's future against the truth. Her hands trembled at her sides. She allowed them to. Courage did not require stillness. "You spoke to the hospital," she said. "You learned the exact amount I owed." Dominic said nothing. "You believed that because I was afraid, I would become dishonest." "I believed you would choose your family. I am choosing my family." Emily turned slowly, letting her voice reach the galleries. "My brother is 15 years old. He trusts me to teach him what kind of person he should become. What would I teach him if I bought his chance to live with another woman's silence?" No one moved. "What would I tell him when Lily disappeared? What would I say to the families whose homes were taken through false contracts? That their suffering mattered less because I loved someone?" Dominic's calm began to crack. "Enough." Emily faced him again. "You are not offering mercy. You are asking me to help you erase people. Sign the statement." "No." The single word traveled farther than a shout. Dominic's eyes hardened. "Then your brother loses the procedure." Pain moved through Emily so sharply that she nearly looked away. She did not. "Then I will find another way, but I will not make Noah's heart beat with money purchased by another person's captivity." A nobleman rose from the left side of the chamber. "This proceeding is wasting our time. Remove her." 3 others stood with him, then 5 more, not because the evidence had convinced them, but because Dominic's command had revealed their allegiance. Emily saw it happen, so did every guard positioned along the walls. Dominic lifted his hand toward her. "Take her below. The council will pass judgment before dawn." The guards moved. Emily looked once more at the empty throne. No answer came, no rescue, only silence. She turned to walk with them rather than be pulled. Then the great doors at the rear of the chamber opened. Cold air swept through the hall, extinguishing half the candles at once. Every guard stopped. Every noble turned. Salvatore Ricci stood in the doorway, pale as winter, dressed in black, his crimson eyes fixed on Dominic Vale. "Judgment," the king said, "will begin now." No one bowed when Salvatore entered, they forgot. The vampire king crossed the threshold with measured steps, one hand hidden beneath the dark fold of his coat where the silver poison had left his arm weak. His face was almost colorless beneath the red chandeliers, yet the force of his presence moved through the chamber like winter air through an open door. Emily stood between two guards at the center of the court. For one brief second, relief rose inside her. Then she remembered the locked cell, the public accusation, and the silence he had chosen while Dominic offered Noah's life in exchange for a lie. Salvatore stopped beside the empty throne but did not sit. "Release Emily Carter," he said. The guards obeyed immediately. Dominic remained at the foot of the platform. "Your Majesty, the council was informed that you could not speak." "You were informed that I was recovering." Salvatore's crimson gaze settled on him. "You decided those words meant the throne was empty." Dominic spread his hands. "I acted to protect the court from a human conspirator. Then you will welcome evidence." Adrian Cole entered through a side door carrying a narrow black case. 4 loyal guards followed him, but none approached Dominic. Not yet. Salvatore looked toward Emily. "The key found in Miss Carter's possession was not the key I ordered placed for her." A ripple of surprise moved across the chamber. Emily's jaw tightened. There it was. Confirmation. He had tested her. Salvatore continued before anyone could speak. "The original was an enchanted copy. It could open only the outer archive corridor. It could not open the hidden room where Lily Bennett was confined." Adrian opened the case and placed 2 silver keys on the evidence table. They appeared identical. "Royal keys retain an imprint of every authorized seal used to activate them," he explained. "The harmless copy carries my seal and the king's. The genuine key carries a 3rd. He held a glass lens above the 2nd key. Golden light spread across its surface, forming the crest of House Vale. Every face turned toward Dominic. He did not flinch. "I have accessed the Eastern Archives many times in my official capacity. Not during the past 8 years, Salvatore said. The wing was sealed by royal order." Dominic's expression hardened. "A key proves access. Nothing more. Correct." Salvatore's voice was almost gentle. "Which is why it is not the only evidence." Adrian removed a ledger from the case. "At 11:17 last night, 1 vial of liquid silver was signed out of the restricted security cabinet using Lord Vale's authorization code. The physical signature was later erased, but the cabinet retained the timestamp." Another guard stepped forward with a sealed cloth pouch. Inside rested Dominic's silver signet ring. A faint pale residue clung to the inner edge. "The royal physician confirmed the same compound was present on this ring," Adrian said. Dominic turned toward the council. "Contamination. The entire eastern chamber was exposed." "Your ring was collected from your private office," Salvatore replied. The first line of uncertainty appeared among Dominic's supporters. A councilwoman, who had stood moments earlier, slowly returned to her seat. Dominic noticed. "You are building a performance around the testimony of servants." "No," said a voice from the upper gallery. Lily Bennett stepped into view between 2 royal guards. She wore a clean grey dress, and though exhaustion still marked her face, she stood without assistance. Emily released a breath she had been holding since the cell door closed. Lily descended the staircase carrying a cloth packet. "I copied the private accounts before Lord Vale imprisoned me," she said. "The original ledgers are hidden in his estate office behind a false panel. These pages list the families, the false debts, the seized property, and the council members who received payments for approving them." The names struck the room harder than any accusation. Several nobles stopped looking at Dominic. Others looked directly at the exits. Adrian accepted the packet from Lily and compared its first page to a document already sealed inside the black case. The paper, ink, and accounting marks match records recovered from Lord Vale's office 20 minutes ago. Dominic's calm finally fractured. "You searched my property without council approval." "I authorized it," Salvatore said. "You were unconscious. I was listening." Silence fell. Salvatore turned toward Emily. His gaze held hers for a moment, and she understood that he had heard her in the treatment room. Every word. He had also heard Dominic's accusation unfold and had waited. The knowledge cut through her relief. Salvatore faced the court again. "The guard who replaced the key has confessed." He also confirmed that Dominic ordered the false security report that brought me to the eastern wing. At a signal from Adrian, the same guard entered under escort. His head remained lowered. "I changed the keys," he said. "I disabled the corridor lights. Lord Vale told me the Maid would be blamed and that the king would survive long enough for the council to remove him." Dominic's voice rose. "A frightened guard will say anything to save himself." "Then explain why you offered to pay for Noah Carter's procedure if Emily signed a false confession," Salvatore said. Dominic turned toward Emily, then back to the throne. Too late, every member of the court had heard the offer. Salvatore descended the steps until he stood level with him. "You did not merely attempt to remove me. You built your power by trapping people in debts they could never repay." Dominic's eyes moved across the nobles who had risen in his support. Some remained standing. Enough to make his next choice clear. "Yes," the denial disappeared from his voice, "because someone had to preserve order while you weakened it." A murmur passed through the chamber. Dominic lifted his chin. Human servants obey because they need us. Human families remain silent because they fear losing what little they have. That dependence has protected our world for generations. You call exploitation protection, Emily said. Dominic looked at her with open contempt. I call it reality. Salvatore's eyes deepened to a burning red. And I call it treason. Dominic turned toward the nobles behind him. He places the word of a maid above the blood of ancient houses. Look at him, he has already chosen. One by one, 11 council members stepped away from their seats and moved toward Dominic. The court divided in complete silence. Salvatore did not order the guards forward. He allowed every supporter to reveal themselves. Then Dominic pointed at Emily. This human has made the king unfit to rule. Salvatore moved between them. No, he said. She revealed that some of you were never fit to stand beside the throne. The 11 nobles standing behind Dominic did not move, but their decision had already changed the room. Every remaining council member watched Salvatore, waiting to see whether the king would answer defiance with fear, force, or law. Salvatore chose none of them. He simply turned toward Adrian Cole. Seal the chamber, the great doors closed. The sound echoed beneath the vaulted ceiling. Dominic smiled. You would imprison your own council for disagreeing with you. Disagreement is permitted, Salvatore said. Conspiracy is not. One of Dominic's supporters, Lord Harrow, stepped toward Emily. The human should be detained until the council confirms these records. His hand reached for her arm. Salvatore moved only half a step, placing himself between them. The temperature dropped so quickly that white mist formed above the polished floor. No one touches her. Lord Harrow stopped. The quiet command carried more weight than a shouted threat. Emily looked at Salvatore's back, at the rigid line of his shoulders beneath the black coat. 4 days earlier, he had treated her kindness like evidence to be examined. Now he stood between her and an entire faction of his court. But Emily did not want protection that left everyone else unheard. She stepped out from behind him. Lily should speak, she said. Dominic gave a short, humorless laugh. The maid thinks she can direct royal proceedings. She is not directing them, Salvatore replied. She is reminding this court what justice requires. He looked toward Lily. You have the floor. Lily approached the center of the chamber, clutching the recovered ledger against her chest. Her hands trembled. Her voice did not. She began with Margaret Lane, 27 years of service, an original debt of $1,200, more than $30,000 repaid through withheld wages. A current balance that Dominic's office still listed as $9,000. A murmur moved through the servants' gallery. Margaret covered her mouth. Lily read another name, then another. A kitchen worker charged for meals he prepared himself. A groundskeeper billed for housing that had been promised as part of his wages. A widow whose family farm had been transferred after a signature was copied onto a false agreement. Each entry was supported by payment dates, authorization seals, and private distributions to council members. The numbers formed a pattern too precise to dismiss. Dominic looked toward the nobles who had joined him. These are administrative disputes, not crimes against the crown. They became crimes against the crown when you used the profits to finance an attempt to remove the king, Adrian said. He placed a second ledger beside Lily's. Payments from the contract accounts funded the guards who altered security access last night. 3 of Dominic's supporters stepped away from him. He noticed immediately. Cords, he said. A councilwoman named Evelyn Frost rose from her chair. She had remained neutral until now. Did you know the debts were false? She asked Dominic. I knew dependents maintained order. That was not my question. Dominic said nothing. The silence answered for him. Evelyn turned toward Salvatore. I request a formal public trial under the covenant of equal testimony. Several nobles stared at her. The covenant was old, rarely invoked but still valid. It required testimony from servants, laborers, guards and nobles to be weighed under the same standard. Dominic's face hardened. That law was written for disputes between houses. Emily spoke before fear could silence her. Then this is the moment to decide whether the law protects people or only titles. Salvatore looked at her. Something changed in his expression. Not surprise, recognition. The request is granted, he said. Dominic stepped forward. You cannot be serious. You would place ancient bloodlines on trial beside hired humans. Yes, Salvatore's answer was immediate. Because the law does not become weaker when it applies to the powerful. It becomes real. The nobles who still stood with Dominic began to separate. 2 returned to their seats. 4 moved toward the wall, unwilling to remain visible beside him. Only Lord Harrow and 3 others stayed. Dominic watched his support dissolve, and the controlled mask he had worn all night finally disappeared. You think this ends with ledgers and speeches, he asked. These people will demand more, better wages, representation, access. They will never be satisfied. Emily faced him. People who have been denied fairness do not become dangerous when they ask for it. The people who profit from denying it become afraid. No one laughed. No one interrupted. Adrian signaled the guards. They approached Dominic and the remaining conspirators without drawing weapons. Lord Vale, Adrian said, "You are under royal detention pending public trial." Dominic looked past him towards Salvatore. "She has changed you." Salvatore's gaze shifted briefly to Emily. "No. She forced me to see what I had allowed myself to ignore." Dominic was escorted from the chamber with Lord Harrow and the others. The doors closed behind them. The rebellion ended not with a battle but with witnesses, records, and the slow collapse of fear. Salvatore turned toward the servants' gallery. "No contract connected to Dominic Vale will be enforced until the trial is complete. No worker will lose housing, wages, or medical protection during the investigation." Relief moved through the gallery in quiet waves. Some people cried. Others simply sat down as though a weight they had carried for years had finally shifted. Emily remained in the center of the court. Salvatore approached her, stopping several feet away. "You were placed in danger because of a test I created," he said. His voice was clear enough for every person in the chamber to hear. "I allowed your arrest to continue so the conspirators would reveal themselves. You were protected, but you were not informed. That choice was mine." Emily met his eyes. "Protection without truth still feels like betrayal." The words struck the court into silence. Salvatore did not defend himself. "You are right." For the first time in living memory, the Vampire King admitted fault before nobles and servants alike. Then he looked toward the empty space where Dominic had stood. "The trial will begin tomorrow night. After it ends, this court will answer for every name in those records." Emily glanced toward Margaret, Lily, and the workers gathered above. "Not only the court," she said. "The people harmed should decide what justice looks like." Salvatore held her gaze. "Then they will." At that moment, Emily understood that saving a king had been the simplest part of the night. Teaching him to share power would be far more difficult. But for the first time he was listening. The following night the public trial continued until the red candles had burned nearly to their bases. Servants spoke, guards testified, families brought contracts that had trapped them for years. Accountants explained how false fees had been added faster than wages could ever repay them. No one was hurried, no one was silenced because of rank. Lily Bennett identified the copied records Adrian had sealed the night before, and the original ledgers recovered from Dominic Vale's office matched every page. By the time the final entry was read into the record, Dominic's network had been exposed from the servants' kitchens to the highest council seats. The court found him guilty of treason, unlawful confinement, financial fraud, and conspiracy against the crown. His remaining allies were stripped of office and placed under royal detention while restitution was calculated. Salvatore did not announce the verdict with triumph. He stood before the throne, pale and motionless, and ordered that every stolen property, withheld wage, and fraudulent payment be traced back to the people who had lost it. Then he dismissed the court for 1 hour. When the chamber reopened, the prisoners were gone, the evidence tables had been cleared, and a cedar chest rested beneath the throne. Emily recognized it immediately. Gold coins filled the bottom. Property deeds lay inside a sealed leather folder. On top rested a royal ring bearing the crest of House Ritchie. The estate workers had been invited to remain in the upper gallery. Margaret Lane stood at the railing beside Lily. Adrian Cole waited near the doors. The noble houses filled their seats again, quieter than before. Salvatore entered without ceremony. The silver compound had left him weaker than he allowed anyone to see, but his posture remained straight. He stopped in front of Emily rather than returning to the throne. 2 nights ago, he said, "I decided your character should be measured by a test you did not choose." His voice carried through the hall. "That decision created the opening Dominic Vale used against you. I then allowed your arrest to continue so his allies would reveal themselves. You knew I believed you had abandoned me." "Yes." The answer came without excuse. A murmur moved through the nobles. Salvatore continued, "You were guarded from direct harm and every word Dominic spoke was recorded. But protection does not erase fear. Strategy does not erase betrayal." He turned slightly so nobles and workers could see him. "I apologized to Emily Carter before this court." No one breathed. Kings issued pardons. Kings granted mercy. Kings did not apologize to maids. Salvatore faced her again and gestured toward the chest. "The gold is from my private estate. The land belongs directly to the crown and has never been connected to Dominic's accounts." The ring grants lifelong royal protection to you and your family. None of this is payment for silence. None of it was taken from those harmed. He paused. It is a debt honestly offered. Emily looked into the open chest. The fortune could end every fear she had carried for years. Noah's hospital balance, future treatment, a safe home, food without counting coins, rest without guilt. She imagined placing the ring on her hand and knowing no creditor, employer, or noble could threaten her again. Then she looked toward the gallery. Margaret had served for 27 years. Lily had spent weeks behind a wall because she refused to erase the truth. Families outside the estate were still waiting to learn whether their homes would be returned. Emily placed both hands on the cedar lid and closed the chest. The quiet click moved through the chamber like a bell. "Keep your gold, Your Majesty." Lady Seraphine rose sharply. "No human refuses a royal grant." Salvatore lifted one hand. The noblewoman sat. His eyes remained on Emily. "Why? Because the largest debt in this room is not owed to me." Emily turned toward the gallery. "I was trapped for one night. Some of them have been trapped for decades." She faced Salvatore again. "If I leave with gold while everyone else waits for your mercy, then nothing truly changes. One fortunate maid becomes safe. The system stays the same." Salvatore glanced at the closed chest. "Then tell me what justice requires." Emily drew a slow breath. "Cancel every fraudulent contract connected to Dominic Vale. Return the land taken through forged agreements. Repay withheld wages from the assets of those who profited. Create written employment contracts with clear pay, clear terms, and the right to leave." Several nobles shifted uneasily. Emily continued, "And establish a council where human workers can speak for themselves. Not through a sympathetic noble, not through a king who promises to listen, their own representatives." The hall filled with whispers. Salvatore silenced them with a glance. "And what do you ask for yourself?" Emily thought of Noah. "My brother needs a heart procedure on Friday. I ask that the Royal Medical Fund cover it as compensation for the danger your test placed me in. Not as charity, not as affection, a lawful debt." Salvatore nodded. "Granted." Emily's breath caught, but she did not look away. "The other terms," he turned toward Adrian. "Prepare the cancellation orders tonight. Freeze the assets of every convicted conspirator. Begin property restoration at sunrise. Draft the worker protections with testimony from those affected." Then he looked toward the gallery. "Within 30 days, representatives will be elected by the human staff and the families named in the ledgers." The room went silent again. Salvatore returned his attention to Emily. "All of your terms are granted." She glanced at the royal ring resting on the chest. "Then keep the gold." Why? So the court remembers that justice was not purchased by rewarding one person. For the first time, humility softened Salvatore's face. He removed the ring and placed it on the table between them. "Then this will not be your reward. It will remain here until this court learns what protection means when it belongs to everyone." Above them, Margaret began to cry. Lily reached for her hand. No noble laughed. No council member protested. Emily Carter had entered the hall as a servant offered a fortune. She remained standing as the woman who had refused to let a kingdom confuse generosity with justice. 3 months later, the eastern corridor no longer echoed with secret knocking. The sealed wall had been opened, the hidden room had been emptied, and the space where Lily Bennett had once been confined had become a public records office. Its door remained unlocked during working hours. The first document displayed inside was not a royal decree. It was a list of every fraudulent contract cancelled by the court. Margaret Lane's name appeared near the top. After 27 years of service, her false debt had been erased. Her withheld wages had been repaid, and she had chosen to remain at the estate under a new agreement she had read, questioned, and signed freely. Hundreds of other workers made their own choices. Some stayed, some returned to restored homes. Others used their compensation to begin new lives beyond the Ritchie lands. No one was punished for leaving. Dominic Vale was sentenced to permanent confinement inside a sealed northern fortress, where he held no authority and had no access to the people he had once controlled. The nobles who had supported his system lost their council seats and surrendered enough personal property to repay the families named in the ledgers. The guard who had exchanged the keys received a reduced sentence after giving complete testimony and helping investigators locate every altered account. The court did not erase his wrongdoing, but neither did it ignore his cooperation. Lily became chief records secretary for the newly formed Human Council. She kept the copied pages in a glass case beside the official ledgers, not as a monument to suffering, but as proof that one person preserving the truth could force an entire institution to confront it. Noah Carter's heart procedure took place on Friday morning, exactly as scheduled. Emily sat beside his hospital bed when he opened his eyes afterward. He looked tired, pale, and more annoyed by the hospital food than frightened by the future. Did you really argue with a vampire king? He asked. Emily smiled. I disagreed with him. That sounds like arguing. You should rest. That means yes. His recovery remained steady. Within 6 weeks, his doctors allowed him to return to school part-time. By the end of the 3rd month, he was spending afternoons helping coach a younger baseball team, though Emily suspected he mostly enjoyed giving instructions from the dugout. She no longer worked as a maid. The human staff and the families harmed by Dominic's contracts elected her as their first representative to the Crimson Court. Salvatore did not appoint her. He did not influence the vote. He remained completely silent until the final count was announced. Emily won by a margin so large that even the oldest nobles could not dismiss it as gratitude. On the evening of her first council session, she entered the throne chamber wearing a simple navy suit instead of a servant's uniform. The cedar chest was gone. The royal ring remained on the central table, exactly where Salvatore had placed it 3 months earlier. He stood beside the throne, his skin still unnaturally pale beneath the red glass windows, though the cold distance in his expression had softened. "Representative Carter," he said, "your seat is ready." Emily looked at the arrangement. The human representatives had been placed several feet below the vampire council. She moved her chair forward until it aligned with theirs. The scrape across the marble sounded painfully loud. Several nobles stiffened. Salvatore watched her. "Is there a problem?" "There was," Emily replied. "I corrected it." A faint smile touched his face. "So you did." The session lasted nearly 4 hours. They approved clear wage standards, independent contract reviews, medical protections, and a rule requiring every worker to receive a written explanation of employment terms in plain language. They created an appeals board with equal human and vampire membership. Salvatore accepted amendments he once would have considered challenges to his authority. Emily rejected 2 of his proposals and improved a 3rd. No one was punished, no lamps shattered. The kingdom survived disagreement. When the meeting ended, Salvatore picked up the royal ring from the center of the table. "This once represented protection granted by the throne," he said. "What should it represent now?" Emily considered the question, then turned his palm upward and placed the ring back into it. A reminder. Of what? That protection controlled by one person can become another kind of cage. Salvatore closed his fingers around the ring. And where should power rest? Emily looked at the long table, the elected representatives, and the records waiting to be reviewed. Where people can question it. The others left until only the 2 of them remained beneath the fading candlelight. Salvatore walked with Emily toward the great doors. "Will you remain at the estate?" he asked. There was no command in his voice, no promise of gold. No offer disguised as obligation. "I will stay while this work matters and while my presence is my own choice. And if one day you choose to leave, you will let me." Salvatore bowed his head. "Yes," Emily studied him, measuring not the promise but the man making it. "Then I will stay." The doors opened to the blue light before dawn. Emily stepped into the covered courtyard where the first birds were beginning to stir beyond the stone arches. Salvatore followed, his face paler than hers, shaped by centuries of darkness but no longer ruled by it. He did not walk ahead, he did not ask her to follow. They crossed the courtyard side by side while workers opened the gates for a new day. The coldest king had not been defeated by force. He had been changed by a woman who refused to sell her conscience, and the woman once treated as ordinary had taught an immortal court that kindness without freedom was not kindness at all.